Hey everybody, it is Mark Coe for October 3rd, Tuesday, 3rd of October. Kind of a slower day in the markets today, but I think a really good day to point out the importance of the levels and what to take from them. You know, it's funny, just perception of what you're seeing. So if you're sitting there looking at if you're looking at a fast moving chart and you're looking at things and expecting some real good quick resolution, you could be very easily disappointed on a day like today. And if you have the perspective of, I don't really care when it happens, I only care that it happens, and I only care that it happens in the correct way, then you may take away a very different feeling from a day like today. But I think the important part and the important thing to realize is that regardless of your approach, if you will use the levels and let the levels work for you, you're going to end up with a very strong appreciation of how solid they can be in your read of them. So let me just work through a couple charts here. I know it's a quieter day, but there's still some things that are really worth pointing out. Now gold, as I say this all the time and I say it in my videos, anytime I do the analysis, it's from a top down. So when I'm sitting here looking at it, we have a 30-minute chart of gold here. When I'm sitting here looking at gold, I know what this chart looks like on a bigger term. I know what this bottom edge is representing on a bigger picture level. And this was a consolidation level, the bottom edge of it, that took gold up to 1360. So what that means is you're looking at the bottom edge down to this 1270, right? That took gold up to 1360. So now why is that interesting? Well, it's interesting because this whole section was that support that drove it up to 1360. Now, with that in mind, looking at levels within that makes it that much more powerful. And so what I'm looking for is bottom edges within this. Bottom edge that gives way. New bottom hold. So really the strongest bottom edge down within this is trapped down to this 1271. Above it, it's starting to base closer to 1272. So we'll want to keep an eye on that. And why does this matter? Well, it matters because on any retest into that, I want to be looking for that for long trade, looking for a rotation at a minimum up to 1280 and ideally up to 1293, just initially. So that's why that's of concern to me. So the next part of that is on a daily basis, you know, depending on what time you start your day, the only bottom edge levels you had available to you were just what I'm pointing out here in red and green, which is to say you had to buy a pullback or there was no entry in gold. So to take that idea across the market and say, hey, I'm either going to deal at a level or I'm not going to deal. It was beautiful today in the room because anybody that's listening to me knows you don't have the ability to churn your account. You don't have the ability to get destroyed. There just simply aren't enough movements to levels. And if you will keep your activity based at those levels, you are all of a sudden a much stronger trader. So the idea that you're going to be focused on the levels and let the levels work for you makes you very different. So taking a look at that same thought process in euro dollar. We know we're long on the model in euro, right? The daily model is long of euros. Let's see if there was any intraday opportunity in euro. Anything shorter term presented in euro. And if you'll remember back to what we were looking at yesterday was this 1720 area, that would have been of a pretty big thought process to me and carried that through to also to today. So what did euro do? Well, first it comes and makes a new low down here at 1700, but then it's quickly rejected, right? And so what you're seeing is levels, levels, levels to play off of. Right? And this is back towards 1730. Now we're seeing some weakness towards the latter part of the U.S. afternoon. But at the end of the day, euro's not really going anywhere. And so my point is in keeping the levels in focus, understanding what is making sense to trade against, to lean against, to trade around, you have to be dealing on those levels. And short of that, you're kind of just throwing darts where you don't really know where to be even looking. The idea of focusing on levels gives you a real solid foundational approach to say, okay, where should I be targeting? Where should I be looking? Is it just absolute coincidence that the breakdown area matches the peak area? No, it's not really coincidence. Markets have memories. The levels have memories, right? So I don't care what market you go through. Same thing in pound. But as long as you're dealing against the levels, you're going to continuously put yourself in that position of strength to be able to find your best trade locations. and stick with it. It's not always one moment that just says, oh, okay, I know exactly how to draw these levels. I know exactly how he's doing it. What I try to give you in these videos is a quick indication of how we're approaching the market, why we're looking at bottom edge levels, why bottom edge levels matter. Why am I focused on longs down here, bottom edge in pound dollar? Why? It comes from a longer term chart. That's why. And that's really the important part in the focus. So keep at it. Today's a quiet day, and these are great days to do nothing. Sit on your hands and just wait for a level. And there's nothing wrong with waiting for a level. I don't care if it's a day, 2 days, 3 days. Wait for the trade. Don't force it, because there's a big difference. If you force the trade and you lose, now all of a sudden when Wednesday starts, you have to make up for what you did on Tuesday that made no sense, right? It's different if you're taking a calculated risk and it fits into your trade plan, but it makes no sense if you're saying, well, part of my trade plan is I just have to hit the button several times a day. That is not what this game is about. We're beyond that level, right? That's really amateurish thinking. So the idea that pushing the button more times makes you more money is not necessarily true. Pushing the button in proper locations, in good trade locations, should translate. That's very different than just being hyperactive. So I caution everybody, do not be your broker's best friend. Do not overtrade. You don't need to do it. All right, for October 3rd, it's Mark Coe. I will talk to you all soon. Cheers.